Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to cultural appropriation foods around the world. And by this I assume it's like a food that originates from, let's say, Thailand, but then over the years it's become a very popular, like, I don't know what sort of Thai food you'd have. Pad Thai is very popular now in Spain, for example. I don't think that's actually the case, but and yeah, like it's now, I guess, or you could just use Indian food and then the UK, because I mean, a national dish of the UK now is chicken korma, which is pretty crazy to think, but everyone eats it. I love it as well. It's a great food, but it's a national dish of the UK, even though it's an Indian food. Or like pizza, I guess you could say is Italian, but obviously American pizzas or New York pizza, whatever. There's Chicago pizza, all that kind of stuff. But we're going to check this out. Hopefully going to enjoy. Links are in the description to my Patreon if you want to see some more of my reactions. But it's been a long time since I've watched this guy's channel, so it'll be good. And yeah, let's check this out.
Hello friends, my name is JJ, and as longtime viewers of this channel will know, my mother is an immigrant from Holland. And when I was growing up, one of my favorite meals that she would cook for me was this traditional Dutch dish of like flat noodles with peas and chicken and this special tangy black sauce. In my house, we always just called it the Dutch noodles, but I later learned that its real name is bami goreng, and it is in fact not even a Dutch meal at all, but rather an Indonesian one. For you see, the Dutch used to control Indonesia, and one of the byproducts of their colonial empire was that a lot of Indonesian food found its way into the Dutch diet. But along the way, a lot of these foods were also significantly changed to make them more palatable to Dutch tastes. For example, the Dutch really love to deep fry everything, so one popular snack treat that you can buy over there is this little hockey puck of deep fried bami noodles, which they call a bami schep.
What the hell? What the fuck? How do you deep fry noodles? I mean, it could be quite nice. I don't know, but that's a wild thing to see.
It did go both ways, however. The Indonesians wound up eating a lot of Dutch food as well, including hagelslaw, which are like these little chocolate sprinkles on toast, and poffertjes, which are mini pancakes. So today we are going to look at some more stories of stuff like this. What are some other examples of ways in which one country has come to eat the traditional food of another, and how much did they change along the way? Obviously, one of the biggest examples of this has been the interplay between British and Indian cuisine. Back in the mid-19th century, when British rule of India was going at full speed, the British introduced black tea to India, which the Indians then proceeded to mix with their own unique blend of herbs and spices, thus creating the chai tea that we all know and love today. Or as the Indians just call it, spice tea, since chai just means tea in Hindi. I think I will microwave myself a cup right now.
Microwave? Wait, is that how you make it? You microwave tea? I've never thought of microwaving tea, but I guess not many people have kettles in Canada or the US or wherever, I guess. So, I mean, I know the US for a fact, but damn, I've never heard that phrase. Let me just microwave some tea.
Ah, colonial. Tea, of course, was originally imported to Britain from China, meaning the chai tea that the Indians drink by the bucket load today is actually 2 degrees removed from the original version. 2 degrees of separation is a pretty common phenomenon when it comes to countries embracing foreign foods, as we shall see. During their centuries-long rule of India, the Brits turned the Indians onto a few of their other trademark foods as well, particularly cookies, which are quite popular over there. The hottest cookie brand in India is even named...
Oh, these are Indian cookie brands, Britannia. What the fuck?
Britannia. But it would probably be fair to say that the Indians have had a lot more success making their own food popular in Britain. Yeah. A lot of Brits took a like...
I mean, when you've got foods like in India where they actually have flavour, of course they're going to be popular. We've just got biscuits or tea, which is just like, okay, it's quite simple.
To spicy Indian food when they were over there. British food not exactly being well known for its robust flavor. So Indian curries have been served in England in one form or another for over 200 years, a reality which has only increased since Indian people began immigrating to England in large numbers in the 20th century. Particularly in the big cities, the curry house has now become one of the most iconic types of British restaurant. But a lot of what they sell are uniquely British curries that have been developed over time to be acceptable to British taste buds. Dishes like chicken tikka masala, or the British version of korma or vindaloo.
Love a chicken korma.
Would probably taste a little bit off to a lot of Indians. The British tend to like curries that are thicker and sweeter and more tomatoey than what is common in
Is that true? I don't like tomatoes, to be fair, so...
India. But the Brits are very proud of their curries all the same. In fact, one of their popular patriotic soccer songs just consists of people yelling Vindaloo over and over again.
Oh my god.
A fun
I've never had a vindaloo before.
fact about Vindaloo curry, however, is that it isn't even traditionally Indian. It was actually a meat dish from Portugal that the Indians took a liking to during their interactions with the Portuguese in the 16th century. Vinadalos is what the Portuguese called it. So in other words, what the Brits are eating is a Britishified version of an Indianified version of a dish from Portugal. 2 degrees, you see? Now, the popularity of curry in Britain
And they probably got their stuff from somewhere that we don't even know.
has had consequences for other countries. During the late 19th century, for instance, when Britain was becoming a closer military ally of Japan, British sailors are said to have introduced Indian curry to the Japanese. Today, curry is a very popular fast food in Japan, much more so than I think a lot of foreigners might expect. I know when I was in Japan, I was very surprised at the number of curry chains everywhere, as well as the vast assortment of curry mixes you could buy at the
Katsu
supermarket.
curry. I love a katsu curry.
But once again, thanks to multiple degrees of separation, Japanese curry is now pretty far removed from the Indian version. I'm sure most Indians wouldn't even recognize what the Japanese are eating to be curry at all. It's really more of a sort of semi-sweet gravy stew, often served with miniature onions and ginger slices and deep-fried pork. Yet the Japanese think that this is traditional Indian food and will often advertise it with little cartoon drawings of stereotypical Indian guys and whatnot. Japanese cuisine in general is quite surprisingly internationalized. We often think of Japanese food as an example of a very authentic type of national cuisine that hasn't been overly tainted by foreign influences, which is of course a very common stereotype of Japanese culture more broadly. But in reality, their food scene has just as much foreign influence as anywhere in the West. For example, another thing that really struck me about Japan was just how much bread they eat. You go to any Japanese supermarket and they will have a huge bakery section full of all sorts of different rolls and buns and things. Bread is not native to Japan, however. It was introduced to them by the Portuguese sometime in the 16th.
It's kind of crazy the influence that Portugal had for such a small country. Obviously, the UK or England's very small, but Portugal is probably a bit smaller. But they have a lot of influence, but in different ways, like food and all this kind of thing, culture and all that kind of stuff.
Century. To this day, they still call it pan, which is some sort of Japanese corruption of the Portuguese word for bread, which is pau. One of the favorite Japanese bread snacks is what they call melon pan, which is a Japanese version of concha, which is a crusty sweet bread, very popular in Mexico, but originally from somewhere in Europe. Melon pan slash concha is actually a good example of a food that has been so thoroughly embraced by a different country that the country it originally came from has sort of been lost to time. The Japanese also eat something known as curry pan, which is a kind of American-style jelly donut that's full of curry. It always reminded me of...
Oh. So it's a donut with curry. Obviously, it's probably not a sweet one, it's a savoury one, but it's probably good, but that sounds a bit... Just the idea of a donut, a sweet donut with curry, but obviously that's not how it's going to be.
The thing that one of the bad guys in Fantastic Mr. Fox eats. But in any case, curry pan and melon pan are so popular in Japan, they even have these little superhero characters called Curry Pan Man and Melon Pan Girl, who are very popular with babies. All right, so south of Japan, we have Vietnam, which is another very good example of a country whose cuisine has been very heavily influenced by its colonial past. Vietnam was colonized by France, the land of cafes, baguettes, and rich desserts.
To be fair, for food, you probably couldn't have been colonized by a better country, because I'm sure that would have influenced them quite positively. Although, even that's the case, Asia is just I think that's the continent for really good food, right? So you mix Asian cuisine with French cuisine, and it's a recipe for success.
As a result, the Vietnamese love to eat baguette sandwiches, known as banh mi, a distinctive type of drip coffee they call café, and a type of custard known as bánh flan, which is the Vietnamese version of creme caramel. In fact, even the most iconic
Is that like the ones that are in the yogurt? There's like caramel. I feel like I've had them, but they're like in yogurt pots. You can buy them. If that's what I'm thinking of, like caramel, kind of jelly-like. If that is what it is, I've had that before, and I used to love it. I've not had it for years. I might have to have it again one time because it's been in a good, probably like 10 years.
Vietnamese dish of all, pho, is a product of French influence. Pho is said to be rooted in a Vietnamese effort to create a Vietnamese version of a traditional French beef and vegetable soup known as pot au pho. The Vietnamese eventually shortened it to just pho, meaning people like me who go around calling it pho are in fact objectively pronouncing it wrong by any standard. Have you ever had those delicious egg tarts they sometimes have at
they're good. They're Portuguese, right?
Chinese restaurants? It probably won't surprise you to learn that those are originally from Europe, introduced by the Portuguese back when they were out mucking about in China. We don't think about them much these days, but at one time the Portuguese had one of the biggest empires in the world, and as a result, their foods turn up in all sorts of unexpected places. For example, consider the popular fast food chain Nandos.
Yep, it's Portuguese style, but they're very popular in the UK.
It's from South Africa, and
South Africa.
Their main thing is this unique type of spicy chicken. See,
I thought it was Portuguese. Oh god, see, I'm confused now.
Back when they were out conquering the world, the Portuguese discovered chili peppers in South America, and
so it's a South African. It originated from South Africa, but it's Portuguese style, I think. But it's very popular in the UK.
Imported them into their African colony of Mozambique. The Mozambicans, for their part, really liked the taste of chilies, which they call peri-peri, and used them to flavor all sorts of different dishes, including chicken. And much like the British with curry, the Portuguese eventually appropriated peri-peri chicken into their own thing. Today it is probably the best known Portuguese food in the world, after those tarts. But why is Nandos a South African company, you ask? Well, during the 1960s and 70s, the Portuguese launched a very brutal war.
It's a loud-ass plane. Wait, why is the audio going?
Against pro-independence rebels in Mozambique, and a lot of white Portuguese settlers living in Mozambique then fled to next door South Africa, which under the apartheid government of that time was allied with Portugal. And one of those Portuguesers who made the move was Nando Duarte, the founder
Nando Duarte, so this is where it stems from.
Of Nandos. So I guess that's a somewhat problematic story, but Nandos tries...
Is Nando's popular around the world? Because again, it's one of the most popular places in the UK. Let me just search. Is there any... First I'm going to look in Asia. Oh, they are... It's a lot bigger than I thought. Established in Malaysia since 1998. Is there Nando's in China? What about the US or Canada? In North America. 32 branches in Canada with 4 in Alberta. 17 in British Columbia. So there's 32 in Canada. What about the US? In USA, I know it's not right, but... Nando's in the US, but only in 4 places? Oh, so it's not popular there at all. How many... So I feel like the UK is probably the #1 spot. 459. What about Portugal? Because it originates from there. Maybe they don't even like it. Even though it's Portuguese. There's none. Damn. South Africa, where it originates from. So there's more in the UK than there is in South Africa. Damn. I don't know. People probably don't care. You probably don't even know what Nandos is, but
To make up for it by being one of South Africa's most progressive companies, very big into LGBT rights and that sort of thing. All right, so how about America? Now, the United States never had much of an empire compared to the countries in Europe. Its main territorial conquests in the age of imperialism were in Mexico, and I think most of us are pretty familiar with the way that traditional Mexican foods have been absorbed into the American diet.
I feel like the US is going to be the hotspot for this because it's like a much newer country. It's like what 200 years, 250 years. So there's going to be a lot of different cultural appropriation foods because all of them will have came from people who came from other countries. So you got Mexican style, you got obviously Italian, probably a mixture of like just European foods all around. So yeah, it's like the hotspot. Obviously Asian food as well. It's just a hotspot for all kinds.
Over the years, with gigantic cheesy tacos and burritos and Mexi fries. But the more interesting story is the degree that American cuisine has been impacted by immigration, particularly Italian immigration. See, in the late 19th century, Italy was a poor and poorly run basket case, so a lot of Italians emigrated to the US, particularly New York and New Jersey. They came largely from southern Italy, which was the most troubled part. Because a lot of these Italian immigrants were poor farmers, they ate what at the time would have been traditional poor southern Italian farmer food, like pasta and pizza. Pizza in particular was really not something that was considered special at all in 19th century Italy. It was basically just flat bread with tomato paste and garlic. But you see, the Italian immigrants to America were able to get quite rich quite quickly, at least by Italian standards. And this allowed them to really fancy up their peasant food, chiefly by adding a lot of meat to everything. Pepperoni on pizza, meatballs in the spaghetti, beef in the ravioli, excuse me, beefaroni. After World War II, this decadent Italian-American food was also some of the first to get caught up in the great American post-war craze of making food super mass-produced and convenient. Because pizza and pasta are made of relatively simple ingredients, it is very easy to manufacture quickly and at a massive scale, much like that other most beloved American immigrant meal, the hamburger. This is one of the reasons, by the way, that so-called authentic Italian pizza that you
wait, where does hamburgers
buy at those fancy restaurants with the red brick oven and all the rest are just a load of BS. Unless you're eating that really boring margarita style pizza, you are not eating anything that a 19th century Italian peasant would recognize. Italian American cuisine was also exported to America's most prominent overseas colony, the Philippines, which America ran from 1898 to 1946 after acquiring them from Spain. To this day, Filipinos are very fond of eating American-style spaghetti with meat sauce, except that they also put banana ketchup in it to make
banana ketchup. Oh, that makes my stomach churn,
it sweet, and sometimes cut up bits of salty Filipino-style hot dogs. You can see that they've put their spin on everything. Even good old American apple pie. The Filipinos really took to it, but unfortunately apples are in rather short supply in that part of the world. So instead they invented something called Buko pie, which is a kind of apple pie made of unripened coconuts. In the popular Filipino fast food chain Jollibee, you can even buy Buko pies done up in the style of those little apple pies they sell at McDonald's. But nowhere have the Filipinos had more fun with American cuisine than with their take on traditional American birthday kebabs. You know American birthday kebabs, right? Where you put the marshmallow and the hot dog on a stick. Ivanka Trump does it, and the Filipinos do it too. Anyway, let me know in the comments if you know any other...
I'm just gonna search. I love going to these little rabbit hole searches. I know I should know, but like, just to like sort of get a gauge, typical American. Wait, sorry, foods that originate from the US. Buffalo wings, thank you for that. Ranch dressing, not a fan of ranch. Cornbread, peanut butter, love peanut butter. Chocolate chip cookies, love it. Soul food. 14 food. Booking.com, I don't want to see it on Booking.com. Key lime pies is from the US. I didn't know that. I've only had it like once or twice, but I feel like I liked it. I like lime, and I can't remember because it was so long ago. But lobster roll. See, these look so good all the time when I see them, but I've never been like interested or not interested. I've never like gone up. I don't want to go on my way to just try lobster or crab. I had the crab sticks before. I hated them, but obviously it's completely different. Chiapino. What the hell is that? So it's rich stew with pesto covered toast. I mean, you can't go wrong with pesto, to be fair. Corn dog, yep. California roll. Wait, I've seen these. So it's sushi, but this version was created in California. Buffalo wings, yep. Cannot go wrong. New England clam chowder. Po' boy. That looks good. Chicago deep dish, yep. Saratoga potato chips. Chicken fried steak. Ah, God, I want to try this. Philly cheese steak. Oh, I had this, I know it's not the same. I had this at Subway recently. The cheese steak. Well, it was cheesesteak. It was a cheesesteak sub. And Reuben sandwich. Now let's see the UK. Oh. From England. Let's see how good it compares. Traditional British foods. Shepherd's pie. I actually do love a shepherd's pie. Beef Wellington. I've never had a beef Wellington. Fish and chips. I mean, everyone knows that. Tikka masala. Really? I know he mentioned it, but I still thought... I guess he did mention it. Yeah, it's just our version, basically. Because obviously it's a lot spicier. However Indians would have had it, it would have been a lot spicier. So this is just a dumbed down version. Steak and kidney pie. Never had it. Eton mess. Is this with... I've had this once or twice. Is this with meringue? Yeah. Afternoon tea. Cornish pasty. A full breakfast. Roast dinner. Well, there we go. Yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this reaction. And if you want more of this stuff, let me know in the comments. And until next time, subscribe. Peace.